Jesus Christ. Amen. As we gather together, we're around 1 Corinthians 9, verse 3 through 7. And as we come to chapter 9 here, we run into Paul and showing through his life where he is willing to give everything up on behalf of faith and on behalf of other people. Now, as we're going through this portion, Paul has just talked about all these things about eating food sacrificed to idols, about sexual immorality. Now he comes to, and so this is where it's all, and then he says, and I would be willing to give anything up on behalf of another person. I do have certain rights. He absolutely says that. That's what he's going to get into today. But for certain circumstances, you give up those rights. And so Paul, as he was with those in Corinth, gave up his right in order to be paid for the work that he had done. That's another thing that he said with food. I tell you, give it up for the sake of somebody else's faith. You want to see something else? I gave up my right to be paid there on your behalf. Now, because you give up a right doesn't mean you don't have it anymore. That right is still there. Nevertheless, he gave that up on their behalf for their sake. He did that. That's what he's pointing out here. Whatever it may be, willingly giving it up as we're concerned about the people that are around us. So starting in verse 3, as he talks about, this is my defense to those who would examine me. And the word examine here is a very legal term, kind of like in a courtroom where you're questioning back and forth in a courtroom type setting. That's the would examine me. That would come forward with the questions and would try to entrap the person that's speaking. So this is my defense. And he gives several aspects, and he's going to go through this as he goes throughout the rest of this chapter. As he talks about giving things up, that is our right on behalf of somebody else's faith. Do we not have the right to eat and drink? And here, especially talking about him, talking about Barnabas, talking about really all of those doing missionary journeys, proclaiming the word, sharing the faith. Don't we have a right to also make a living for the blessings and the time that we're spending here? The answer is, of course, yes. Doesn't mean getting rich. Well, it does mean right to eat, to drink, to be comfortable so that I can focus on the ministry. That's what Paul is saying here. Don't I have that right? Yes, he does. Going on another tangent. Do we not have the right to take along a believing wife, as do the other apostles and the brothers of the Lord and of Cephas? Don't we have the right also to bring our wives with us as we go about on our missionary journeys, or as we go about from church to church to share the word, to share the gospel message, to lift people up, and to direct others to the incredible gospel message of Jesus Christ and salvation in him? He says, and in fact, the other apostles do so. Side note, at least many of the other apostles were married and went about. And the brothers of the Lord, James, the other brothers, it seems that they also were married. And Cephas, Peter, seems he was married, and seems to imply here that this would be obviously after Jesus' ascension into heaven. As Peter was going around, he and his wife would go to the different churches as well, meaning Peter was married at that time as well. Don't they even bring their wives along and you take care of them? Or is it only Barnabas and I who have no right to refrain from working for a living? Everybody that does their work is entitled to the pay for their work. Who serves as a soldier at his own expense? No. You serve as a soldier. Yes. Is that a great duty? Is that a service? Yes. Should they also be paid? Should they be paid correctly? Yes. Who plants a vineyard without eating any of its fruit? Or who tends a flock without getting some of its milk? The worker is worth his wages, whatever the work is. Taking care of sheep or goats, planting a vineyard, farming, serving as a soldier, sharing the gospel message. Yes, the work that's gone forward, you should be able to make a living going forward with the blessing in whatever vocation God has placed, and guided us. That's the point. And the last note, it seems that as Paul was away, or as Paul was there were certain people that were upset that they were giving this up on behalf of the Corinthians. Probably some of the more wealthy of the Corinthians, because the thought pattern, especially among the Corinthians, you can find this the rest of what I'm going through. If I give so much money, I have a certain amount of control over what's happening and taking place. And so if I can't use my money for control, they got upset. That seems to be part of the issue. And that seems to be why in this case, at other times, Paul took a salary. In this case, he did not, because he saw what was going on and what would take place. And so he gave up his rights for that church in Corinth because of where they were. The Lord bless, keep you now and always. And that